All right. And we are here, and we are live with Talks with Alex. And I am trying to make sure everything is set up for this live. Facebook has been having some issues today. It's probably because Donald Trump's in Philadelphia and he's probably messing everything up. But I digress. Oh, and there we go. Yeah. So um, let me go ahead and try to update some of this stuff while I kind of talk to you. I just want to say that thank you all for supporting me the way you do. A lot of you are here every week with Talks with Alex, supporting the show, and I really, really appreciate that. You see, I'm wearing my Temple shirt. This is kind of showing my stress right now because I am back in school and I will be graduating soon. And so, between this and work and all the other things that are happening, I'm trying to pull everything together last minute a lot of the time. So trying to add it into what I'm doing. But I really do enjoy these talks with Alex. It gives me a chance to kind of get out of my mundane activities and be able to do something that's outside of schoolwork or Italian or Brexit or any of those things. All right. So I have some really great guests today that I want to kind of talk to you about. We want to talk about education. So in the past, my videos on education have done very well. They've gotten over 2,000 views. And so like I am excited about, hold on one second. I'm excited about what's going on in education. This is really different because we are experience a transition that we've probably never seen before, and it's going to affect education for a really long time. The technology that's being used to teach children, the conversations that are being had around equity. And so I'm excited to bring these guests on. A lot of them are guests that we've had from the past. And so, yeah, here we are. And oddly enough, for some reason, yeah, this system has been acting weird all day. They just showed up on my on the screen. So here they are. So let me bring them back to the back and let me introduce each one of them one by one. The first guest that I want to definitely introduce is Ms. Jasmine Evans. All right. And so Jasmine is hailing from Willingboro, New Jersey. Jasmine Evans has been teaching for the past 10 years in urban school systems. Currently, she works as an elementary school teacher at KIPP, Philadelphia, one of the major charter school systems within the city. Recently, Jasmine completed her second master's degree in educational administration with plans to become an administrator within the next year. The driving force behind her commitment to urban education includes being a champion for her students and providing them with resources, support necessary to be successful despite the circumstances that they may face. All right. And so the next guest that I want to definitely introduce is one of my favorite guests. He's a great, an amazing teacher here in Philadelphia in the public school system. And I think that he's a great advocate and a great resource for a lot of people. So that's one of the reasons why I brought him back. That's Mr. Ishmael Jimenez. Ishmael Jimenez is a dedicated educator who for the last 14 years has worked with students in Philadelphia from preschool age to high school. Along with teaching at the high school level, Ishmael has facilitated several professional developments with colleagues in the school district and at post-secondary institutions like the University of Pennsylvania, Penn State University, and Princeton University on issues ranging from structural racism to bridging the knowledge gap of students between high school and post-secondary institutions. Currently, Ishmael is co-chair of the Caucus of Working Educators, co-founder of the Philly Hub Liberatory Academics. Geez, I'm really trying to rush through this. Philadelphia Black History Collaborative, and the Melanated Educators Collective, while being an active participant in several other organizations that seek racial justice in education and across the city of Philadelphia. Last but not least, one of my great friends from way back when, me and Brittany go back like early 20s when I had locks, trying to be a radical out here. Out there in the Washington streets. So I just want to introduce her, and I'm glad to bring her back. This is Brittany Selah Lee Bay, is a reading specialist in DC. She's been teaching for 13 plus years and currently teaches middle school which is now her love. Additionally, Brittany has a book she's publishing, Etymology Rules. She loves words and word study. Follow her on Instagram, Twitter, and etc. All right. Boom. That is my crew. Let me bring them all on. This is the panel. And let me also put this last bit of a plug in before I get off my soapbox and start asking the really good questions is please like, share, subscribe to the channel. It is Talks with Alex if you want to watch it on YouTube. You can follow me on this page. Also, please ask questions. Put it inside the comment section. I want you to be engaged. Ask them questions. I know there's a lot going on right now in Philadelphia educational system. I believe the principals just voted no confidence in Dr. Height because of some of the things that he's been doing. So if you have questions or you want to bring it to, these are the people to ask. I mean, not necessarily, well, Brittany doesn't know anything about Dr. Height thing because she's actually in Washington, D.C. But Jasmine and Ishmael both teach in Philadelphia schools. So like I don't know how not far they can go, but I'm sure that they'll answer to the best of their ability, okay? Now, the first question I want to ask is, we have now transitioned back into the school year, okay? And I know that, for instance, for me on the college level, Temple University tried to open up its college campus and they had an outbreak. It went from 50 to 200 people in the matter of days with the coronavirus, so they shut down the campus immediately. What's been going on in the school system? I know that all of you represent different types of schools. Ishmael's in the public school system, Jasmine's charter. Brittany, I believe you're private. Brittany's charter too. So like, just kind of hear the differences of what's going on. How has the schools been going so far as you guys have transitioned back into the school year? And we can start with Ishmael.
Well, definitely, Philadelphia Public Schools, I think Philadelphia schools general were just virtual. And for me, there's just been, since the very beginning, a lot of talk of like proceeding like these are normal circumstances, right? So the same measures still apply, the same type of like strenuous type of pressure and paperwork that is associated with teaching is furtherly imposed. So not only are folks expected to learn how to even navigate and make lessons effectively enough on an online platform, but there's another layer of work that also exists about data tracking and like relating everything back to all that. So like just like that aspect has left a lot of people like stressed out about all the deeper and like these side software programs and everything. So that's left a lot of people stressed out. But ultimately it's like we need to be flexible during these times. So like I know as a teacher and as an advocate, that's what I've been advocating in schools. Even for my own children, my fourth grader who goes to Lingelbach Elementary, which is a Philly public school, doesn't even have recess scheduled in the day. So like these type of things create issues, you know. And as a parent with three boys, luckily our kindergartner is in like a co-op type thing, but our three boys are at home in front of a computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the day feels like one long Zoom meeting.
I know exactly how you feel about that. I know exactly, and you know, I'm going to transition to Jasmine because immediately we get questions in for Jasmine. So apparently she's a popular teacher out here too. So I'm gonna put this in two different ways, okay? Because first, Mr. DJ Super asked, what were your experiences like teaching children who came from troubled home environments? But I'm gonna also say, what is it like trying to deal with some of the kids who give you that you have to make a little bit of extra effort to kind of to bring into the scope? I know that Ishmael is saying that, I mean, it feels like a whole lot is happening as far as the technology is concerned, trying to bring everything in. How was it? And let me say this for me too. In college, it has been an absolute, I can't even say the word, but it's been a crazy show happening on college campuses. And these are professors with college students. How has it been with you as a as a teacher dealing with younger people, especially ones who are coming from troubled backgrounds?
So it's been very interesting. just like all educators, we're definitely making sure that we are extending grace to all of the students. I actually live teach from 8:30 to 12, and it seems like a very long chunk of time, but it actually flies by. And I'm like sure to give my kids a lot of breaks for students that are struggling. I'm constantly reaching out. I actually just had a Zoom call with a student before jumping on here. Just in constant communication with families and just letting them know like this is a very difficult time, and we're all here for you. We're here, whatever you need. If you need extra supports, extra one-on-one help, like just making ourselves available to the parents and families.
How has it been, Brittany, dealing with the technology? Have you had a lot of support coming from the school that you're in as far as dealing and navigating the technology?
I would say yes. So we have a lot of autonomy at my school. So we can use different platforms. The only requirement is that the only two requirements are that we use Zoom, and then we have a platform that it's called Unified Classroom. That's where we post our assignments, and grades are posted as well. But it's a platform that we had been using prior to the pandemic. So I like the fact that beyond that, they show us different tools that we can use, but we have a lot of flexibility in what we can do. And this is something that I really appreciate my school for, amongst other things. But they have given us a little over $500 to spend throughout the year on technology. So it's rolled out into our paycheck. So every 2 weeks, we have a little bit extra so we can spend that on anything from internet. Like I'm about to buy me a document camera. Like they issued me one, so I haven't had to buy one. But I mean, the document camera is like life. So I'm probably going to invest in one because they've given me the money to do so. Like if our internet isn't that great, we now have $500 or so to invest in improving our internet. And that's just for us. For the students, all the students are receiving a Chromebook. So everybody will be one-to-one by the end of the quarter. And I think I couldn't have asked for anything better. So
then let me ask you, Ishmael, I mean, like just hearing some of the things that they are offering, I guess, well, Brittany so far in her school, what things have they been offering you in the public school system in Philadelphia to kind of help lighten the load of the expenses that it takes to actually do internet learning? Chaz was laughing.
I feel like you set me up right now. No, I mean, really nothing. I purchased my own laptop to go through the year, and luckily, like I was able to afford that at that time. But like mostly, it's even like teachers who want laptops, who need laptops, their laptop broke, go down and get a Chromebook now. So we have folks operating out Chromebooks trying to do classes. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like all these type of things, and they offer us the PDs, and some of the like I was mentioning before, like purchase software licenses for like things like Imagine Math, Achieve 3000, things like that. But besides that, nothing.
Wow. I remember before when we were having this talk about the transition, well, we did it at the end of last year when we had this conversation, right? You were saying that they weren't really giving you a lot of professional development as far as the technology that they were using. Has the school system gotten better with that as far as the teachers concerned? Because you said you had to create a group outside of the school system to help teachers who were struggling with the technology that was being used. Has the school put in some resources to actually try to help the teachers navigate the technology?
There's like a daily email sent out with webinars and stuff, and like if you have the capacity to watch it, I'm sure it's helpful. I don't necessarily have the capacity. You're staying up late, you're waking up early, you're putting in more work than you ever have just to, like I said, be effective. Because at the end of the day, it's about the kids, regardless of all the other nonsense. And if you're unable to be effective, I couldn't even imagine, you know.
So then, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So then I'll pivot to Jasmine. Jasmine, what has KIPP? KIPP is one of the leading charter schools in the country. I'm very aware of KIPP. KIPP was doing very well. They have wonderful facilities. I remember when I toured one when I was in Washington, D.C. What has KIPP been able to do to kind of support you during these times?
They've been doing an amazing job. This is my first year with KIPP. So as a new teacher coming in, of course, we got a laptop, but they also made available for teachers an extra monitor. We have document cameras that we were allowed to bring home. I have this wonderful whiteboard behind me that was given to me also, and notepads, and a very long list of webinars and other things that we've been working on. We actually came back like an entire month or so before school started. So every day we were constantly in PDs and trying to learn different platforms in order to make sure that we're able to engage students.
So then I guess, Brittany, what kind of techniques have you been using to keep your students engaged over long periods of time? I know Jasmine said that she was live teaching from 8 to 12, which seems like it's a very, very long time. What does your day look like, and how are you keeping students engaged?
So our schedule is that the students are on an A-B schedule. So Monday and Thursday is an A day. Tuesday and Friday is a B day, and they do 4 classes a day. But the classes are 75 minutes long. And for the first 30 minutes, teachers are giving direct instruction. And then for the rest of the period, students can work independently. But the teachers stay on so that if students need more support, that, you know, we're there to work with them. I actually have 3 intervention classes. So I teach 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. The 5th graders are new, and I'm still building that class because we test all the 5th graders. And so I do a great amount of literacy diagnostics in the beginning of the year. The 6th graders, I had them last year. So, and same with the 7th graders. So I tell everybody, it literally felt like a family reunion, like when we all just hopped on the Zoom, and a lot of chatting about how they're feeling, how their summer was. I could tell like they missed the interaction with each other, and to a certain extent, the interaction with me. So I would say they kind of know what to expect from me. I mean, the emphasis is definitely literacy and reading. So we do a great amount of reading of materials, but I love breakout rooms. Like, they are, again, another tool that I don't know how I'll be doing this without. And so I do a lot of activities where they are interacting with one another. I use this one platform. I'm working on getting better at it, but it's called Pear Deck, so that students can chime in and engage with PowerPoint lessons and give their responses, and it can be anonymous. So sometimes I get more from the students being on this platform than I would in class. And ultimately, I think like the best way to keep my students engaged is just my personality. I try to be fun. I try to be funny. I try to be silly. I definitely give them the platform to just share the things they want to share. Sometimes it's a little off topic, but again, like, I just want them to be involved and engaged. And for the most part, I haven't had any issues. The biggest issue I've had actually is with one student who's an L student. And so his language skills kind of deter him from engaging at the same level of other students. And I think that's our biggest pitfall is like students with the greatest needs. We have to figure out something a little bit deeper than what we're currently doing.
Yeah, I was gonna, and you know what, honestly, I hadn't even thought about the students who have IEPs, whether it be behavioral or educational, and how they're faring through these times. I mean, like, are they bringing in other teachers or supports to kind of support those types of things? But what I was going to ask you, Ishmael, because I'm kind of curious of what the public school day looks like for you, and then I guess I'll bring it back to ask about how some of the schools are dealing with some of the kids who have special needs. So if you could just kind of give me a rundown of what the school looks like as far as the teachers are concerned for the public schools in Philadelphia, and then we'll bring it back to the IEPs. So what's going on in public schools in Philadelphia? You're on mute. Oh, and for the audience, IEP is an individual education plan. And they can either have behavioral ones or academic ones. And so go ahead, Ishmael.
Yeah, so in Philadelphia, they left it up to the principals really and like the regions. So it differs school to school. So like my school, specifically Kensington, Kappa is the neighborhood comprehensive high school. So as a result, we're sticking to an 8 to 3:04 schedule, where the kids get their half an hour lunch, and I think that 6 classes a day, 80 minutes, and we do AB. And so on A days, my lunch is at 1. On B days, my lunch is at 10. So lunch is still like staggered like that, like we're in the school building because our cafeteria is small, our cafeteria. But like things like that, little things like that that don't make sense is how the schedule is marked up. So 80-minute classes, you take a 10-minute break, which is good. I try to enforce it. The kids are like in the waiting room waiting at like 7 minutes. I'm just typing in the waiting room, John, be like,
You went back on mute by accident, man.
go back and stretch. You know what I mean? So like just telling them that and encouraging them to like take their time with the material, that intellectual engagement's more important than like strenuous type of exertions constantly just to get something done. And a lot of the students respond well to that, especially at the beginning of the year where we just kind of like look at the purpose of education and the purpose of school and everything like that, and what it means to them. So like the breakout rooms, I definitely got a cosign. They're heavy, and my school itself, we have a special ed population about 35%. So I have like a student who has a one-on-one that comes into the class. But I know the one-on-one since last year from another student. You know what I mean? So like the relationship with the other adults there. But as a social studies teacher, specifically African American history, I don't get any other special ed supports besides my documentation if students aren't, if I'm not implementing the interventions correctly, or what interventions I am, and then following up and everything like that. But I get no special ed support besides that.
So then, I mean, how many students are usually in a class at one time for you, out of Ishmael?
I right now I have on my roster anywhere from 34 in like 2 classes to 27 to one class with like 21, but it ranges from 21 to 34 right now.
Jeez. Okay. All right. So Jasmine, how is your school dealing with the students who have IEPs and some of the students who have special needs?
So my building is K through 4. So each grade level has a SPED teacher, and they are partnered with the general ed teacher for the class, and they're basically in there all day. So we use the breakout rooms in order to pull for small group or to check in with students that need more support. Specifically in my class, I don't have any students that receive services, but regardless, I still have the means to have another teacher come in to help support, once again, using the breakout rooms, or even, jumping on the phone or calling an AP to help with students that might need a little bit more support as well.
How are you engaging with parents, Brittany, with your school? I know, and they're also a factor here too. And what are the parents' feelings as they're doing it? I mean, and this is going to be kind of a double question for Ishmael, because Ishmael actually is a parent and he's a teacher. So he's working double duty at the same time. So how are you faring with the parents, and how are the parents dealing with what's going on, Brittany?
I just want to say, first of all, Ishmael, my hat off to you.
Just yelling at him once in a while from the other room. I don't know.
That's all I can say. So yeah, you got it. And as far as your question, Alex, So I actually took on a new role this year, in addition to being the reading specialist, and I'm also the debate coach. Debates, everything.
Yeah.
It is. It is. But I also have been given the role of the 7th grade team lead. So I actually engage with other teachers and then also parents a great deal. And I always tell people, I know a lot of teachers have a lot of challenges with parents, but I don't know if that's just like a strong suit of mine, but I typically don't have issues with parents. And our parents are really happy with what we're doing. I'm going to be honest. Yeah, I don't think what we're doing is representative of what you see across the city. And so they talk to their friends, they talk to their neighbors, and comparing what we're doing to what other schools are doing, they're very, very, very happy. That has been the overwhelming response. We recently had back to school night via Zoom, and just the flood of thanks and joy and gratitude that was expressed in the chat, it really made me smile. And we also had just looking at teachers. Like I said, I don't understand how the teachers are, like, some teachers have like 4 kids and they're all like very young and they're still out here doing their thing. And I think it's because our parents extend a lot of grace to us. So at the back to school night, one of my teachers was introducing himself. This was the 7th grade team. And just as he was saying, I have a 1 and a 4-year-old, the 4-year-old like jumped in his lap and started playing, and he's like trying to get her to calm down. And then he had to take a real serious tone. And this is in front of like all the parents. And I'm sitting here laughing because I'm like, this is amazing. And all the parents were just like, we understand. This is real life. This is authentic. You know, we're going through the same thing. So I just have so much warm and fuzzy feelings about, I think, the parents that I've engaged with, and I think they feel the same way about us.
How about you, Ishmael? How are you feeling about the engagement from the parents, and what are you hearing from them?
So, the engagement of parents in my school has been, very low. Especially, we also deal with a large, transient population also. But the parent support that we have had historically and also currently is good. The relationships are good. And even they get involved in the conversation sometimes if they overhear it at home. So I've had that happen a couple times already, which is like an interesting thing. So I'm actually trying to encourage the students to take it out and talk to their parents about some of the concepts that we're talking about in class, as much as possible, because really that's how learning happens, when you engage in that level of dialogue with folks, especially when it comes to history and contextualizing what's going on right now. But like as a parent, that also exposes the teachers. So like I know what teachers I bang with. I know like my sons go to like different schools throughout the city. Unfortunately, a consequence of not having consistency in the old school neighborhood format. So I have a son that goes to Amy Northwest, a son that goes to SLA Middle School, and 2 that go to Lingelbach. And I got to say, like, I know what school I prefer simply by being at home in the schedule that they have, and kind of like the humanizing nature that the classes are actually like compared to other ones. I'm not going to put anybody on blast. It's just like I think. And when we're saying that, it's so hard, because I don't want my kids sitting watching a screen all day. I don't want to sit and watch a screen all day. And it's just unless, it is a part of the times. And when we're talking about that being part of the times, we also got to realize, like, are we just trying to be here because like we're paying people a lot of money or something, like, or kind of a lot of money? Or are we actually trying to really engage the students in real ways? And you guys sound like your guys are doing wonderful. We definitely. I one of our PD days before school started was a 90-minute video where they stopped every couple like half an hour with like 3 questions and put us in breakout groups. And like at the end of it, I was like, if I showed this video in class, would should that person be fired? You know what I mean? Like, what type of pedagogy and strategy is happening? So like those are the contradictions that exist. Of course, like there's tons of teachers putting in hard work, and I don't want to negate that. It's just a lot right now.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Because for me at work, when I have too many Zoom meetings, or like I'm sitting at because I have a separate office in my house, I have a separate room in my house that is an office space, which I do acknowledge is lucky for me to have. But what I find myself doing sometimes is when I wake up in the morning, I come directly and I'm sitting at this desk from like 8 o'clock in the morning until about midnight. And I've not only gotten up to go grab food out of my kitchen or to go to the bathroom, and that's about it. Like I've intentionally had to get up and go outside. I cleaned out my backyard so I can jump rope every once in a while and just do something outside of just sitting at my desk. And I had to bring my standing desk home from my office at work so that I could at least stand up every once in a while, because sitting at my desk is absolutely ridiculous for the amount of hours that I sit at my desk. And then me being an adult and having to being mature enough to control myself, then thinking about a child between maybe 5 and 18, 17, 18, having to sit at a desk, and they have 10 times the energy that I have as an adult, watching a video and watching teachers sit there, try to keep them entertained and learn information that they really don't want to learn anymore. I mean, they probably really didn't want to learn in the first place, because I'm doing it now and I'm sitting here like I'm learning Brexit and I'm trying to figure out when this is ever going to really apply to the actual job that I have. And so I'm knowing that they're like, when is this ever going to apply to the actual things that I want to do in life? So let me ask you a question. I mean, and you guys are talking about the breakout rooms and how that interaction has helped. I think Brittany brought up something where she was saying that some of the students were able to respond anonymously and they feel like that's good. Do you think that this process, I know that it's kind of been bad for a lot of the students, maybe we're talking about the specific population of students who have special needs or who need extra help or supports. And mind you, I was one of those students when I was in elementary school. So what students are tending to do better? Are you seeing some of the students that are having a turnaround in the way that they've been engaged? Have they surprised you at how they've been able to engage better and have better grades? Because I'm sure that there's a lot less disruption now between students in classes since they're online, because they're not right next to each other anymore. So can I kind of hear of how that's been affecting the learning environment for you? And I'll start with Jasmine.
So for me, I feel as though the biggest obstacle we've had as far as, interruptions with students is a lot of our families have multiple students in school. So they might be all in the same room. They might be in a parent's bedroom. They might be at the YMCA down the street, and there's a room full of students there and they all have masks on. So it's been very difficult to try to keep their attention, but at the same time, also like try to hold them to those high expectations that we have from the start. So I know for me personally, like I don't require all students to have their cameras on. So I have 4th graders, and I feel as though, who am I to force you to have your camera on if you are at home? Especially, my mother was a single parent. Who knows what's going on in a household, or who knows whose house they are, currently at trying to get their work done. As long as you're participating and using these different platforms, like Brittany mentioned, Pear Deck, like all of those different things can be used. And I can see that you're participating that way as opposed to looking at you in your face. So I'm noticing that there has been a lot of talk about that, cameras on, or, uniforms or other things such as that. But I feel like in the grand scheme of things, if kids are, participating and whatnot, why are we worried about those other things?
Well, and I think somebody brought that up to me. They were saying that they were requiring their students to wear their polos. Like they had to wear their polos and they had to have cameras on because it made the students feel like they were in a school environment.
No.
To
I
keep
mean, I
their
have had students like coming in with their pajamas on, and I'm like I'll make a joke about it. Like, we need to focus. You can't just roll out of bed, but it's like sometimes we do the same thing. But just yeah, like sometimes we do the same exact thing. But as long as they're focused, like I've had students, lounging on the couch or lounging in bed or, in the kitchen washing dishes while they're learning. Like my thing is, as long as you're participating, your work is done, you're somewhat trying, like this is not normal. So it's like we have to, just like we're extending the grace to, the educators and to the parents, we have to also extend grace to our students. Like, yes, they're little people. Like I have fourth graders, but we also need to be mindful of, what might be going on in their world or in their home.
Wow. Ishmael, I'm going to kind of bring it back to you. I mean, Jasmine brings up a good point. What is going on as far as the videos and the places that the kids are actually having to go to be online? And that's a really good conversation to have because I know that we were talking about equity and kids having internet and to be able and spaces because I know that a lot of these parents they don't have a house like I do where there's rooms for every last one of their students to be in quiet spaces. Like how are students adjusting to having to be in a space where they have internet and a space to actually sit down and do work?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I don't require cameras. So as a result, for the most part, the students don't put their cameras on now.
Mhm.
Hopefully I didn't start a bad precedent. um,
Yeah.
I do have like a couple students that like put it on. You can tell like they're with their grandmom or something and they're making them put it on because you just see them walk by once in a while. But for the most part, like I've seen glances when when students do turn on their cameras. Like one girl like had a baby with her, and another guy was taking care of her younger brother. So like there's a lot of that happening, especially for older kids who are looked at, especially if parents are working to be like responsible for younger siblings or even cousins. Um, and so like for the most part, like was just said, like if they communicating through the chat or through like voice, like I consider that actually participating and that happens. There's a couple students I'm worried about. And those are the students that we're going to focus energy on to bring them on board and have them recognize like this work we're willing to give you time and flexibility, but you're still responsible to kind of like produce work that the time and everything, the energy that it puts out is necessary. And I think like having that balance and recognizing all of that, I think that's healthy for the kids. And moving to an asynchronous, but it's not like flooding them with work, but it's more purposeful work that they might find relevant to the real world. So um, right now we're
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point because I mean, of course, I keep bringing it back to me being in school. I feel like I have more work now than I did before. I feel like teachers are giving out more assignments now to compensate for the fact that we're not there. I don't know what that's about because I find myself doing more, and I hate to say tedious work. Is that something that is intentionally happening? And I'll throw that at Brittany. Like, I mean, do you find yourself giving out more work to truly try to assess where kids are?
So in the spring, we were primarily asynchronous. We had the option to do synchronous lessons on Monday. And so
what does asynchronous mean? I'm sorry, I'm a little. What's that mean?
Right. I bet a lot of people didn't know what asynchronous meant until the pandemic and distance learning. So feel no way. But asynchronous means that you're not live. It's like you post the assignment and the students have until the end of the end of the workday, or in our case, at first it was till 9 p.m. to complete all their assignments assigned for that day. So like Wednesdays for us are asynchronous. We don't meet, but we still post assignments. But 4 days a week, we are synchronous, so we are live. And one of the things I think people had a hard time with was like gauging how long it took a student to complete an assignment. So yes, I think that they were given a lot more work than they typically would have been given. I mean, even myself, I would ask them to do things and I thought that it would not take very long. And then they tell me, oh, it took me half the day or something like that. So I mean, the biggest thing that helped me was feedback. I would do a Google form and as an exit ticket, and consistently I would ask, how long did it take you to do this assignment? And so then it helped me to kind of figure out, this is how much I can ask them to do, especially now that we are doing synchronous. And like I said, we're supposed to only give it direct instruction for 30 minutes. So that leaves like 45 minutes for them to work on an assignment. And then they have an extra like hour or two at the end of the school day where like they can go back and correct things as needed and whatnot. So yeah, students are saying though that it seems like they're getting a lot more work. And I think it's just because some of those teachers are having a hard time gauging how long it takes students to do things. And some teachers are trying to maintain what they've been doing. They want to do the same curriculum and not recognizing like, well, it's going to take them longer because they're not in person and you can't monitor what they're doing. So that's why I just ask them for feedback and try to adjust myself accordingly.
Yeah, and so I mean, we'll bring it back to Jasmine real quick because I have a quick question. I remember you were saying a couple of minutes ago that you just got off on a Zoom call with one of your students. And Brittany just said that she's using Google Forms to kind of get surveys of what the students and get feedback from them. How are you guys getting feedback from the students? I guess now we can bring it there because we talked about the parents. We talked about how are you getting feedback from the students?
Oh, my babies are not shy. They just tell it like it is. Like, Miss Evans, this is too much. Why do we have to do this? We just been online with you for this whole time. Like, they've been very vocal. And so I've been using that to be like, okay, if we get through this math lesson, I will give you some time back and you're able to start your homework assignment while I'm sitting here, or you're able to do other things. So that way you're not getting offline and then having to still sit at your computer for an hour or so to work on things. And for me, I don't really believe much in homework, especially during this time. But I understand that, we do need feedback. We also need to see like where students are so that we can help them at least to try to grow or have some sort of growth, especially for math and literacy. So I definitely focus more so on that, like making sure students are reading every night. But yeah, just definitely giving them time during class and just allowing them the space to be open and honest about the workload.
How about you, Ishmael? How are you getting feedback from your students? And I saw that you nodded a little bit when you were saying some of the teachers are trying to stick to curriculum. Did you want to add something to that?
Oh no, just the overemphasis of normalcy when like putting stuff out there. And it's like, it's not normal, dude. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to say. But like for the most part, I just tried to structure it in a way where, the conversation happens. So like I try to give space every class, ask for feedback after activities. If I'm incorporating a new tool, I want to ask them like afterwards, like, what did people think? Was that corny? You know what I mean? I don't want to waste your time. And I emphasize that. So like having 80 minutes and using time periods, because I like to do synchronous, then asynchronous, synchronous, and then asynchronous, and then synchronous again to wrap it all up. But it breaks up the thing for the students in a way where they're able to engage with the material and hopefully over time engage with each other even more. But like, again, it's hard to hold every single student accountable, especially if you're dealing with like 29 in a room. Like I'm dealing with like 15 breakout rooms if I'm doing pairs or something, or 17 breakout rooms. So I'm jumping. And it's like, how much time? So like it's like finding that balance, finding that nice space. But definitely like I want to identify like several tools and just use those repeatedly instead of like so many, and treat that like kind of how you would treat routines in your classroom. But again, it's like building it as you fly, um, and
Mhm.
imagine what it could be. So I think in like 3 years of doing something like this, I might get good. Um, and snow days will probably be over forever, which is just a sad thing that nobody ever talks about. So I just want to add that bit.
Oh yeah, I did used to hope and wish for snow days. That's not any, well. If the
I don't
electricity goes out,
know.
maybe if the electricity goes out, we have electrical problems because sometimes that happens. But yeah, um, I'll say one. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we're gonna have to wrap it up. This has kind of moved along, and I enjoy this conversation because at the end of the day, education is something that I was a part of. That's how I met Brittany. We were doing education stuff at a charter school in at a detention center that was turned into a charter school in Washington D.C. for the Freedom Schools, and so that's how we met each other, and we kind of did that type of work. That was some crazy stuff. Anyway, beyond all that, talking about IEPs, beyond all that, I just want to know. Do you think that this is preparing the students better for the workforce? I know that for me, I'm finding now that the students are operating and the teachers are operating almost in the same vein that we do in the workforce right now, where I'm dealing with a lot of Zoom meetings. You're using the same technology. The students are learning how to do the chat and interact inside those same ways. You as teachers now, if y'all transition to the workforce, it would be the same exact things. We'd be talking to each other through screens. We will be doing asynchronous and synchronous assignments because we're doing the same thing at our jobs in different ways. It's almost like all the students have their own personal. They're learning how to work from home. Do you think that this thing is training students on how to be effective? Better workforce workers during this time? And I'll toss it back to you, Brittany. Do you think this is preparing them for the workforce?
It's interesting you said that because in our faculty meeting today, we talked about email etiquette, and now this is forcing students to have to use email very often, and sometimes they'll shout and with the all caps and just write the message in the subject like, why is this my grade? Like no greeting, no salutation or anything like that. So little things like that in regards to like professionalism, I do think that they're learning. But I will tell you, I should have said this in the beginning. So I've taught at, I don't know, at least like 5 or 6 different schools in the city. This is the only school that I've stayed at for an extended period of time besides the community college I was at. And the reason why is because, they do a lot of things right, but it's also interesting that it does not serve the community that I'm typically used to serving. So as Alex mentioned, yes, I used to teach at a detention center. I've taught at GED schools, night schools. For anyone who's listening who is from DC, I taught at Anacostia, which is in Southeast. I taught at Cardozo, which is in Northwest DC. Both of those have a very high risk or high at risk population. The school I'm at now, this is the first time I've ever taught at a school in DC where there are white children, and a lot of them are like middle class to upper middle class. So I would say that it's interesting because the focus is not really workforce. The focus is thinking critically and thinking deeply and being exposed to various ideas and like just teaching young people how to have what we call a classical opinion. So you're informed, your opinion is informed, it's reasonable, and it's flexible. At other schools where I've taught, yes, the primary focus was build these skills so you can get a job. So I think in the long run, the way that we're doing it, it not only builds skills to be a deep thinker and do deep work, which get you higher paying jobs, but yes, it also builds your ability to just get, any job, because thinking critically is key, especially in the 21st century. That's what makes you stand out compared to your competitors. So I would say in the long run, yes, they are doing things to help prepare for the workforce, but a different workforce than where we typically see, unfortunately, Black and brown children go into.
What do you have to say about that, Jazz? I see y'all giving snaps and kudos.
She said it all. Like, yeah, she definitely said it all. It's definitely helping our students be able to compete globally, you know, and preparing them to go out in the world and, you know, make moves. So, yeah.
And what say you, Ishmael?
You guys got a sunnier view than me. So like, you know, I'm afraid that we're making more, you know, drones, at least in the public school setting, because critical thinking, you know, for example, at my school now, they got rid of all the honors classes, and then all ninth graders get double math and double English in ninth and 10th grade. But they got rid of every single honors class. So the priority becomes a number game. So they're just playing catch up. So like, you know, like, and I've always been in schools like this where it goes like Renaissance and it for me, it just becomes up and down again. And you know, if they are making the students at my school, like I focus on critical thinking in the class, but there's ideas and concepts I'll bring to my students that they've never been introduced to before. You know what I mean? So like this emphasis, I think, you know, hurts some of our students, you know, who are being trained maybe to stare at screens for 12 hours a day.
Let me ask you a question about this whole critical thinking thing, because it seems like people, and you all were kind of agreeing with it. What do you think creates critical thinking in students, and how could the school system do it better? I mean, it seems like, because I've had conversations with Brittany about her school, and I just think that I wish I can go to her school and I'm an adult. But like, I wish. But what do you think critical thinking is, and how do you give it to your students? I mean, within the boundaries that you have as far as teachers are concerned. And I mean, I know that Jasmine deals with younger students, so they're babies. So I think a lot of her stuff is more like you have to learn these fundamental things to be able to even think outside of the box. You have to learn the box first. But you, Ishmael, you're dealing with high school students, right?
Yeah.
And so like, how are you, especially in spaces where they are kind of, or the more disadvantaged students, how are you helping them learn and think creatively and critically?
Well, you know, I like to, number one, I believe that teaching is an art and a science. And I think Brittany hit on that. Like you also, not only do you have to engage them in material and have engaged material for them to engage with, but they have to be able to build that relationship with you and ask you questions and everything. And then you engage in what I call like intersubjective dialogue, right? So when you engage in dialogue, you're talking about life. And yes, the subject goes off topic sometimes, but then you relate it to the subject at hand. And so I teach a class like African American history, which is required in Philadelphia and not anywhere else. So it's not standardized anywhere. So that also gives me a space where I can get engaged in more existential, Socratic type of conversations and try to involve students within those conversations and challenge them when, you know, they bring up any ideas, not just from one side or the other, because I tell them, if 10 people see the same car accident, how many stories do you get? You know what I mean? You won't get the same one. So like trying to get them to understand that there's different multiple perspectives and layers of understanding and how to interact with the world. And especially in a way that's honest, right? Most of the kids at my school are being trained to be, you know, workers, you know, unfortunately. There is not an emphasis on college, like there's lip service. But for the most part, these are the kids, you know, that couldn't get into like an art school, but are artsy a little bit and live in the Kensington area. Some of the brightest people I've ever met, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like some of these ideas and these concepts are never brought to them to ask them to think about who they are and you know, how they contextualize their reality and everything. And I think when you challenge them that, you know, all young people, especially 16, 17, want to learn. Like this, there's a fallacy that people don't want to learn, man. And it's, I think that mythology mixed in with pseudoscience, y'all. Don't get it twisted. Like sometimes I think we rely too much on the ground rules of our enemies that puts us in a hard place to begin with. But that's a whole nother reality. Because while we're focused on bringing up test scores, and which doesn't value critical thinking on the high school level, I argue, the kids are neglected. And I think it does more harm than good. So like in Philadelphia, I know this as a teacher. So like my kids at their schools, we opt them out the test, and especially this year with the virtual aspect, it's like I don't want that extra added pressure onto my child. And of course that makes me a weirdy, a weirdo and all that. But we definitely believe like that some of these things are just unreasonable right now in this environment. So.
Yeah, and let me ask you another question. Who do you send that up to? So if I am a person and you're talking about themes, because I didn't even realize that schools had themes. Like we're training them to be workers. We're training them to be
No,
I'm not.
They don't say that.
No, they don't say that yet. But you feel it through the way that the curriculums are developed for the teachers to use, right? Yep. So who do you send that up to say, look, or how does a teacher advocate for certain styles and curriculums? How does one send that up the chain to make that change happen for their schools?
Well, I can speak just personally. Like I've written curriculum for 4th through 9th grade. So if you read that in the Philadelphia School District right now, it is good. I really think it's good. Maybe I'm just biased though. But like we embed. Like when we talk about Western civilization, it's only 1/4 on Europe. We decentralize Eurocentric themes when it comes to the very curriculum that is taught. So we're focused a lot on indigenous people in different regions, right? And the development of those cultures and spirituality, you know what I mean? And like origin stories related to it. That's in the curriculum, you know what I mean? The hard part is getting teachers to teach it because there's a knowledge gap. You know what I mean? And, as a teacher who teaches African-American history, I can tell you there's a knowledge gap. So I've been lucky enough to also facilitate new hire orientations for the social studies department for the school district. And also I've been able to do like intellectual prep, professional developments for the school district. But for the most part, it's like kind of inflexible and stuff. So you're still working with like a bureaucratic machine. But some reason I still have a job and I'm not fired yet. Which is very surprising to me. But when we're doing this, actually engaging teachers into thinking about what they teach and like get over this idea that there's no such thing or, that there's a such thing as objectivity when you're teaching, because truth be told, you don't have a whole year to, you can't fit everything in a whole year. So what are you teaching about? So I think folks need to take ownership over their teaching and their practice. I think there needs to be coaching that emphasizes that's not punitive, especially on the high school level where it's content focused. And just all those type of elements that like unfortunately don't exist on the level that I think it should in public schools. And if we get it, they probably would cut the funding 2 years later. So I feel like I'm the negative Nancy on here. But when I'm saying all this,
I just had a conversation with my professor with Brexit, right? And we're having conversations around England and English colonialism around the world. And he said one of the issues that I believe has happened and this is in the English context, but I'm going to bring it back to the American context too, is that there are elites or even the children of a whole generation that do not understand how complex and how horrific some of the colonialism actually was. Where, here in the United States, the Daughters of the Confederacy made sure that they kind of glossed over the whole historical context of what slavery and Jim Crow was, and even the whole Reconstruction period that came after the freeing of the slaves. And a lot of that is not really understood in a lot of places of how horrific some of these things were, the atrocities that these things are, and what it actually took for a huge portion of the world to be speaking English right now. The suppression of cultures, their languages, their whole, even the eradication of certain peoples is not really understood. And so for you to be doing that work, not understood from adults, And even adults who went through the whole civil rights movement don't really understand the complexities of race. Like, it is absolutely amazing to me. And so when they have these strong reactions to when people are saying Black Lives Matter, or they're having these strong reactions around these racial issues, it's not really because, well, some of them are just straight out racist. But the other thing is too, is a lot of people really don't understand it. They really don't have the knowledge because it's honestly been suppressed and kept from a lot of people. And so I celebrate every last one of you, one for being African Americans, for being teachers, for taking care of our babies, and for influencing the future of our country. I really appreciate it. I think it's the most important job in the world. I wish they paid you more. I wish we invested more in the public school as much as we've invested in some of these charter schools. And that's me ranting on my whole political space. But beyond all that, thank you so much for doing the work you do. You are absolutely amazing individuals, and I respect and hold you at high regard. And I wish our country did the same thing for you too. All right. I'm just going to do this one thing. I'm going to let you guys leave us with a positive message because we're at 9:03. And I'm sorry, that's my fault, audience, because I get caught up in listening to them because they always have good stuff to say. And it's always good to hear about what's going on with our babies in the schools, because they are taking care of them and influencing them. What message would you allow us, especially Jasmine, because Jasmine got the babies. They are the best. But what message would you leave with the audience? And how can they follow your careers if you would like them to? Because I know Ishmael is with the working teachers union, the working educators union. So I mean, we definitely want to follow that here. They endorsed me when I ran for office, and I'm always going to shout them out. So I'm very proud of that. What message would you like to leave with the audience, and how can they follow your careers? And we can start with Jasmine. We'll go to Brittany, and then we'll end with Ishmael.
So I guess a positive message is to just please be nice to us teachers. I've just been seeing so many, posts and comments and things on social media about, questioning our commitment and questioning, our daily routines and things that we're doing within the school systems. Like, this is a very difficult time for everyone. So not only are we supporting you and your families, we're also dealing with our own personal lives. And some of us do have, children. So just please be nice. Like, we're all in this together, working for the betterment of our children and our communities. So like, this is a partnership. It's not a time for us to be divisive. And you guys can always connect with me on LinkedIn. My full name, Jasmine Evans. I'm always looking to connect with new educators and folks out there.
Before we hit you, there's one more thing. Somebody is giving me a question real quick, and so I'm going to toss this at you really quickly. But do you think it's going to be difficult to transition back into school full time? That's a really good question. And so if y'all can give me a 3-point and a closing with this question, and then we'll get back to how we can contact you and your positive messages. Okay. But can you give me a good 3 points and a closing for this? And Jasmine, go ahead.
I think yes and no. It'll be very difficult. I know for me personally, I struggle with getting anywhere on time. So I don't know how I'm going to get back into the routine of commuting, especially to North Philly, and I'm living in New Jersey. So I think that will be a very different transition for us. But I think as far as the kids, they're resilient. They will get it together. And if we are, asked to go back in and do in-person instruction, I think they will rise to the occasion and we'll work it out.
All right. Brittany, it's you. You want to answer this question and then leave them with a positive message, and then how to follow you and buy your book.
Oh, yes. Okay. So as far as going back, I agree with exactly what Jasmine said. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I think the kids will not only be resilient, like they'll be very excited to go back. And I will say that our school has already thought about that. So we're going to do this pods thing, and they already kind of arranged the kids. So it'll be like 11 or 12 kids in the class. And I think it's brilliant. Again, it hurts my spirit that such a great school is like not predominantly Black and brown. So I don't know. It's taking me back to the days of like, oh, starting our own thing. And that's just a little reminder where we were when we was trying to be radical revolutionaries and whatnot. But just a positive note, I think I want to echo what Jasmine said is, have grace with the teachers, have grace with the students, and have grace with yourself. Because as somebody had to text me, like, we are in a global pandemic. It's okay not to do everything perfectly. This is unprecedented. So like, we're all figuring it out, and we have to remember that with regards to other people as well. And then lastly, to follow me. So I have this wonderful program that I'm building. It's a book as well. It's called Etymology Rules, because language is fundamental to everything. Like, I don't care what class, language is key. All things that you study have to do with words. So let's learn about them. Let's learn about our language. Let's learn about other languages through etymology. And you can follow me on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Pinterest, like all the social media platforms for the most part. Medium, follow me there. I write. And again, it's called Etymology Rules, and I'll put it in the chat. So thank you for having me.
Girl, and Ishmael, you want to give us this question and then the positive message and then how they can follow you.
Well, yeah, first I just want to say, Brittany, language is never neutral. Paulo Freire just makes me think of whatever. I think the transition will be difficult. As a parent, I'm not mad at it. At the time, I probably won't be mad at it. Just because, I believe, especially my kindergartner, even though we're lucky enough to find parents of other kindergartners to watch them, that doesn't apply to the fourth grader, the sixth grader, and the eighth grader. You know what I mean? So I would like to see them back at school, and it's a 25-minute drive to Kensington where I'm at. But for the most part, I don't know anymore. My school's pretty too. I'm one of those few teachers that go to have a pretty public school. That's 10 years old. Natural lights everywhere and all that. It's beautiful. But when it comes down to it, I definitely would like to see, and I think it will be hard at first to transition, but it's hard to transition into this. My positive note would just be, I think that we need to take ownership of our profession as educators. I think that's number one. We need to, by taking ownership, that means taking responsibility also. So all those college classes that hopefully not many people just skated through, we actually do have to apply theory and action and reflection. I think of a verse from a rap song. It's like, theory, practice, theory, or no, theory, practice, theory. Wisdom is organically grown. It's not prepackaged. I messed it up. But when we're talking about learning and growing, that's why everybody needs flexibility in this moment, but also, uplifted joys as they happen, which is also a very important thing to remember in any type of moment.
Okay. All right. Well, how can they keep in contact with you? How can they follow the Working Educators?
Well, it's www.workingeducators.org. I would also say the Racial Justice Organizing Committee. If you haven't heard it in Philadelphia, we've done some things around student activism with Philly Black Student Associations in several schools, bringing light to what's happening in Masterman and Central with low, Black representation. And I would say look up those orgs. You can find me on Instagram at ishx19. Nothing really goes on there. I just do a lot of political stuff. So,
all right. Well, let me just say this again. Thank you all so much for doing this. I'm sorry we went over a little bit. Education is it's one of my loves. But thank you all for coming on. I really, really appreciate you all. And y'all all said yes immediately. It was just like, yeah, I'm on. I was just like, all right, good. So thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for coming on to see me. Until next time. And of course, this is gonna have to, in my mind, I gotta figure out periods to where we can circle back and kind of figure out what's going on in the different schools. So I mean, it's because I'm really curious, and I think I might have to bring some college people in too, some professors, to see what's happening on some of these college campuses, because I'm sure it's even crazier. But yeah, I wanted to do the babies, the little kids, K through 12 first, and see what's happening out there, because you know I don't have any, and I wish I did. But anyway, so you guys, thank you so much. Until next time, I'm gonna give my little closing words, and then I'm gonna be out. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for being on. All right.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
bye. So yeah, our school system, that they're our future. And you know, honestly, like it seems like it's going a lot better than I thought, depending on what school you are in. Of course, as always, public schools are underfunded for whatever reason that I guess political officials can come up with in that time, but I'm not going to be political right now. I'm just saying that we need to fund the public schools and we need to pay teachers better wages. I'm just going to put that out there because you see what they're going through right now. You have teachers who are being parents and teachers at the same time, trying to educate children, and it's a lot. So like they said, and I think that's what's going to be my closing word, please remember to give yourself grace. And please remember to give other people grace during this time. I mean, I think that sometimes we're forgetting now. We've been in this pandemic since March? And I think sometimes we forget that this is a huge change to our life. And we're about to go into a completely different season. We're about to go into winter. And wintertime is the time that people become a lot more, they go inside themselves. And sometimes depression starts to take over people because it's cold outside, they can't interact. And you have to realize that we have been stuck in the house and our lives have changed. So please remember to be kind to yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. Like, it's okay to feel bad sometimes. It's okay to want to just go out there and just scream and then come back and sit back at your desk, because this is not normal. I mean, like, I gained 30 pounds since we've been on this thing. And at first I was mad at myself because I'm like, what am I doing? But I have to realize I'm not moving around as much. You got to give grace to yourself. When I was at work and I'm used to being a lot more productive and my productivity has gone down, you got to give grace to yourself, you know, because this is different times. And sometimes we can be harder on ourselves. We can be extremely harsh on ourselves, and we can be extremely mean to ourselves when we feel like we're not producing the way we feel like we should. But these are different times. So love on yourself, find ways to get out there and be happy. I think I keep saying this all the time. Therapy is a great experience to have. Make sure you're staying intentionally connected to your friends, and make sure that you're loving on others and not taking it out on people that are closest to you, because it's easy to take it out on maybe your children or your partner or the dog or the cat or the bird that may be in the house. My best friend actually has a bird. So, you know, be kind to yourself and be kind to the people around you so you can stay positive and stay happy. I love you all. Follow me, Alex Deering, on Facebook. Follow my personal or public page. Like this, comment, share. Send me ideas. If you feel like you have something to say or talk about, come be on the show. Reach out to me. My email is jay8390@gmail.com. If you have a friend that you want to see this, it's also live streamed on YouTube. It's Talks with Alex on YouTube. Feel free to go and watch it on there. You can follow me on Instagram. It's j.alex.deering, or you can follow me on Twitter. It's Deering_Alex. Follow me on any of these platforms. Connect with me. Please reach out. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know how you feel about the show. And I will see you guys next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. All right. Thank you for watching. I really, really appreciate you. Bye.